welcome to my session about Azure Active Directory Identity Governance. My name is Nicki Borell. I'm an MVP and Regional Director from Germany. I'm one of the founders of Experts Insight, a partner of the Work, and the head behind the label Experts at Work. The focus of my daily activity is on strategy, security, and collaboration projects. In a consistent approach, we guide companies to modern concepts that support and optimize their business. And today we are talking about Azure Active Directory Identity Governance. So the key takeaways in the agenda for this session is an overall identity governance story, which is not only about users and accounts, but also what they do with their access and with their accounts. We start with a little overview about the Microsoft security and identity story, even focusing real-world scenarios. And of course, we will have several demos and animated examples during this session. So first of all, let's start with the security deployment actions that are provided by Microsoft. And this is just based on Microsoft post on their blog. We will see the link to the URL at the end of the session. Maybe some of you know these overview of these scenarios. I put it in a little video to give you an idea how complex the Microsoft security story is per today. A couple of years ago, Microsoft wasn't a big name in the overall security market, but as per today, we are really proud that we have such a couple of cool features and integrated services to deliver a whole security architecture for all services in the Microsoft ecosystem. And as you can see here in this video, it's definitely a complex scenario. So this is the reason why I start the security sessions and even security talks to my customers and to companies, not with a feature overview, but with a scenario overview. When we are talking about collaboration and communication questions, as per today, we have this fantastic periodic table of Office 365, where we can just select our scenarios and get an idea of which features can help us with these scenarios. As per today, we also have it for the Enterprise Mobility and Security Licensing Bundle as a periodic table. At the end, this shows us it's also for these security features and services a good idea to start with the scenarios. So what is a business case? What do you want to reach? And then focus to the detailed feature set. Microsoft just supports us in this with this approach. They separated in these three main topics, like protect at the front door, protect your data, and the information if there is a attack going on in your Office 365 or Azure environment. So this is a good idea of starting the security deployment action workout to find out which features do you need to secure your environment. So this is an overview about Azure Active Directory Identity Governance. As you can see, it's just a combination of existing features just in one place. And the focus is to get an overview which users have access, what do they do with their access, to give you an idea if the access is still needed, and to set up compliance scenarios around these access scenarios, even for externals, but if you want to, also for internal users in your company. This is just an overview also from a licensing perspective about the different features. At the end, it depends on your scenarios, which license and how many licenses do you need to set up the scenarios in your tenant and for your enterprise. Let's start with Entitlement Management. Entitlement Management gives you the capability to set up bundles or packages for scenarios that you have not only one time, but many times in your daily business. So for example, let's say you have a project with some external partners, and the external partners you use are normally the same because if you have a partner for, let's say, law perspective, because if you're an IT company but not a lawyer company, or even you have some partners helping you with marketing and end user trainings, other scenarios. So for every new project you have with one of your customers, the same group of external people needs access to resources. And normally you have to set up for every new project this in a single step. So you create your teams, let's say, for example, or you create your SharePoint sites, and then you invite these external persons one by another. And with Entitlement Management, you can create a package which says, okay, if you have a new project, then you use the Entitlement Management package to give an external or even an internal user access to a set of SharePoint sites, Office 365 groups, with Office 365 groups teams, or even Azure Active Directory registered applications. This is what we can do with the Entitlement Management feature. At the end, yes, this is the Azure Active Directory P2 license. Here you get an overview about who needs a license and who don't need a license. So for example, you know this mapping 1 to 5 guest users. So for every user you have in your tenant which gets an Azure Active Directory P2 license, you can have 5 external guest users, and then you're good with the licensing scenario. At the end, yes, you also need the licenses for internals. As you can see here, you need a license for everyone who can request a package. You need a license for the persons who are creating and set up the packages. And this is what we will have now in a short demo. So switching to my Azure portal, and let's see what Entitlement Management can do for us. So I'm here in my Azure portal, and as you can see on the top, I have the Identity Governance tab here. And when I click this, then we again see this picture that we already have in the slide deck. And this is the aggregation of all the different features under the context of identity governance. Starting with Entitlement Management, when I just click this link, I come to the Entitlement Management dialog. And as you can see here, I already got one Entitlement Management package. It's called Demo here in my scenario. And let's see what it shows up when we just create a new one. So here I'm now in the create a new access package dialog, and to create one, the first thing, okay, we have to give it a name. Let's call it Demo2. And then the next thing is we have to configure which resources should be part of this package. As you can see here, I can select groups and teams, I can select applications, and I can select SharePoint sites. Let's start with the SharePoint sites. Opening this, I get a dialog on the right side, which gives me an overview of all the SharePoint sites in my tenant. And for example, I select the Demo 4 and say, yes, I want to have this in my Entitlement Management package. As you can see, it is now added to the package, and I can now select which role comes with the package. So if a user requests a package, should he be getting access as a visitor, as an owner, or as a member? In my scenario, I say as a member. And let's say, okay, we need another application. So I select the application tab, and then I can select from every application which is registered in my Azure Active Directory. So for example, let's say I use the PNP Partner Pack as the application here. The same story with groups and teams. So let's go to the next step. The next step is who can request the package? Which users can request it? Every user in my directory can do, and as you can see here, if I select this, I get some more details, so even if approval is required or not, if it is enabled, and some further details. Go to the next step. Lifecycle. How long is this request active? I can configure this here, and as you can see here, features in Entitlement Management are combined together. Setting up a new Entitlement Management package, I can directly say, okay, and I also want to have an access review to use it in, let's say, 6 months or a year, to get an idea of who requested it, who gets access, and is it still needed. But we can also set up an access review as a separate step. No problem, we will do this in one of the next demos. The last tab is just an overview about what we set up here, and then we can create the package. I show you the result when the package is created. The result looks like this, and as you can see here, there is just a direct link created for each package, and what you can do now is just taking this link and provide it to all the users who should be able to request this package. If a user is just using this link, it looks like this. He gets an overview about, oh, there is this demo package, and he can request it, and he gets an idea of which access scenarios are part of this package. So I select it and I say, please get me this access. I have just to fill out a reason. I call it demo, The selection, if it should be started for on a special time, can say, okay, start it, let's say this day, or let's start it tomorrow. And how long do you need the access? This is something we can configure setting up the package. In my scenario, I can select the values. You can also set up a scenario which is more restricted, so no chance for the end user or for the partner to select these values. But at the end, he says, okay, please request it now for me. And as you can see, it just takes a couple of seconds, and then the access request is just going through and it's done. And I need to reassign, sign in, and then I have the access to these scenarios. So let's talk about the next feature. The next thing is the access review. Access reviews are located in different locations in Azure Active Directory or even in Azure. From the scenarios and the topics you can see on the left side it's about who have access and what those users do with their access. Is it okay that they have this access? Do they still need the access or not? On the right side you can see for different scenarios it's not only the Azure Active Directory access review. Maybe for some details we have to go to the Azure Active Directory group or to the reports or the audit logs of Azure Active Directory Privileged Identity Management. We'll also talk about this feature in the next slides. So at the end, from a licensing perspective, it's really similar to what we have with Entitlement Management. We also have these 1-to-5 mapping for internal users, which need to be licensed, and guest users. And of course, not every user in your tenant needs a license. Only users who are working with access reviews, who are setting up access reviews, or who do the access reviews, needs to be licensed. Let's switch over to the Azure portal and have a demo. So we are back in the Azure portal, and in the Identity Governance section, we have as topic number 2 the access review. Starting with an overview, you get a report about the access reviews running in your tenant and are already set up. To create a new one, we can go to Access Reviews and say New Access Review. Okay, we have to give it a name. We can configure a start date, and we can configure if this is a one-time thing or if you have it on a regular base, so every week, every month, or whatever your period should be. There are some other configurations like who should be reviewed, only guest users or every user. And we can configure who should be the reviewer. And this section is interesting for the license perspective because of if you say the group owner, then you have to take care that you have enough Azure Active Directory P2 licenses for every group owner. You also have to configure which groups should be reviewed. And to do this, we can use this dialog. We can search for the groups in your tenant and configure it. Let's say I want to review Demo 1 group. I select it. And then you have to set up the detailed stuff for the review. So, for example, or extended scenarios like, what should I do if the reviewer don't respond to the review? So taking this is a hard cut, but definitely if you do this, it would be respected next time. Also some further details, if a reminder should be triggered, or if the person who should do the review get a mail notification or not. If you say yes, which is a default, the reviewer you selected here, so for example the group owner, or as you can see here, you can select one or two, a couple of typical users who should do the review, then this person's get a mail, and the mail looks like this. I'm switching over to the Outlook here. So clicking on this, it brings me to the overview for all my reviews, which looks like this. As you can see here in my tenant, I'm just the only one who do the reviews, but this overview just gives me a first idea of the scenarios. As you can see here, there are a lot of groups where only one person is in. So these 0/1 means one user needs to be reviewed and 0 is done now. So there's only one user in this group also here. So from my perspective, all these are normally in a real-world scenario groups which are not really active. So the typical demo or test groups users set up. But let's see this here. 16 users are in. That can be a typical scenario. So going into this group, selecting him here, brings me to the details of the report. And as you can see here, I get a list of all the users who are part of this group, and I get some recommendations. So the system says deny this user, also this and this, because of they are not signed in the last 30 days. For this user, you say, okay, it's approved. He's signed in the last 30 days, which is just really high level perspective. At the end, you can select it per user if you just want to take the recommendation or if you want to modify it. This can be done by clicking on details, and I can say no, this user logged in for the last 30 days, but I still need it, so I select approve. And I can give in a reason, and I can say submit, and then it is just approved, as you can see here. At the other side, we can select all the users and can then, you can see here, I can select them all and can say approve it all, which makes it a little bit more faster and easier if you can do it just as a bulk. Now they are approved. This is how the access review works. Let's talk about another feature. It's a group's expiration settings. This feature is not part of identity governance, but from the context, it definitely belongs to scenarios we already also have in the identity governance section. It's about groups lifecycle. And as you can see here in this screenshot, we can configure how long a group is valid. And we can also configure to which person the renewal notification should go if there is no owner for the group. That can happen if the owner of a group is just leaving the company and the account is deleted, or in scenarios similar to this. And if a group is not renewed, then the group is soft deleted and finally deleted. If it is soft deleted, an administrator can reactivate the group in this status. Let's switch over to the Azure portal. So I'm now here in my Azure Active Directory in my tenant, and as you can see, I have on the left navigation the groups, and in this you can see here also the access reviews, which is what we have in the last demo. And now we just will have a look at the expiration settings. And the expiration settings are configured like this. So what is the group lifetime? Who should be informed if the owner of the group is no longer part of your tenant? And you can say, okay, I configure it for all groups in my tenant, for none, or for selected groups, and then again we have to select for which group, let's say demo 1 group for example, should the life cycle review be done. This is, as I said, not originally part of identity governance, but it's definitely focusing to the same scenarios and business needs. So the next scenario we are talking about is privileged identity management. The idea of privileged identity management is that also administrators or persons with privileged rights work with a normal domain user. And if they need additional rights to just do their daily work, they can upgrade their normal user to, let's say, for example, a global administrator or exchange administrator or whatever. And this works automatically in the Azure portal. We will have a demo in a couple of seconds. He gets the administration rights for a given time frame, and after this he's just again a normal user in your Azure Active Directory and in your Microsoft Cloud environment. So there is no need to have typical administrator accounts as a second independent account to your normal user, which makes it more easier to manage your daily work, because if you have only one user where you also get your emails and work in teams and so on and so on, and if you just have a service ticket or whatever to do, then you can upgrade this normal user with privileged rights, and after a given time frame it is just reduced to a normal user again automatically. So here we get a little overview about the things we can configure with privileged identity management. So we can cover scenarios. For example, if Mr. John Doe requests global administrator, then he needs to relog in and is forced to use multi-factor authentication. We can also configure an approval. So if a user just requests, let's say for example, SharePoint Online administrator rights, someone in your company needs to approve this request, yes or no. In any cases, even there is approval or not, it is logged in the privileged identity management log. So you definitely get an overview who requested, who gets the additional rights and how long he can use it. And of course, also privileged identity management is an Azure Active Directory P2 feature. And of course, definitely also in this scenario, not every user in your tenant needs an Azure Active Directory P2 license, but only the users who are working with scenarios privileged identity management is needed. And with this short overview, let's switch over to the demo with privileged identity management in Azure. We start again from here. I'm just going to this, and then we are just in the privileged identity management tab. And we have different sections here. Starting with this, which is the privileged identity management overview, you can see here we have a management section and we have a task section. So first of all, let's start with the management section. In the management section, we can create assignments. Going to the assignments tab, we can say, okay, and please add a new assignment, and this dialog starts. So for which role this new assignment should be. And with this, we get a long list of all the roles we have in the tenant. So for example, let's say compliance administrator. The next step is who should be able to request the role compliance administrator. And I select my user here in the tenant. Okay. And now I can configure if it is elidable or not, if it is permanently or only for a given time period, and then I can assign it. From a user perspective, if I want to use this new role, I have to go to My Roles, and as you can see here, there is a compliance administrator, and in addition I can also select the application administrator role. So let's say take the application administrator role here. I go to Activate. I can configure how long this role or this privileged rights should be assigned to my user. I can give in a reason why I need it and say activate. And then it also takes a couple of seconds, and then I get this rights. I need to log off, log on again, and then I can use these new privileged rights. So let's talk about the last feature, terms of use. Terms of use is more a governance feature. It's just something that is also really interesting in the context of GDPR regulations. It's just a feature we all know from several public forums or internet portals. If you just log in for the first time, you get a pop-up where you need to accept the license agreements and all the other regulations with this platform you want to access. It's just the information for your internal users or even for your external users. You can configure different terms of use. We will see in a couple of seconds in the demonstration. It's just an overview of what comes with the access you provide. And even with some details, so let's say who can help me if I have a problem, who is responsible for different things in your team or Office 365 group you're accessing now. This is what terms of use can do for us. And it's getting more clear if you're just going to the demo. There's one thing we have to discuss from a licensing perspective. It's a little bit different to the other scenarios we had. So Azure Active Directory terms of use naturally is the Azure Active Directory P1 license. Depending on your scenarios, if you want to combine it with other features, we will see in the demo what this means. Maybe then you need in addition a P2 license for several scenarios. But let's switch over to the Azure portal to see it in real life. Back in the Azure portal, we have the terms of use section here in the right corner. Navigating to this, you can see here I have just set up 3 terms of use. Already here my tenant, and just creating a new one is new terms here. And then we come to this dialog. Okay, we have to give it a name. We can configure a different display name. And as you can see here, we can just provide it in a bunch of different languages, which is just focusing on the browser language which is used. And we have even the chance to set up further scenarios, like for example, if the user needs to expand the terms of use, scroll down before you can say yes, I accept it. We can configure expire date, so renewal, let's say quarterly or monthly or something like this, or for a given fixed time period. And as you can see here, we have these additional capabilities using it in combination with conditional access. So we can create a conditional access policy focusing to this terms of use, and this gives us a chance to create different terms of use templates, even for external users, for internal users, or for users accessing from an unmanaged device or scenarios like this. Setting up this means that if a user is just logging into your tenant the next time, he gets a pop-up which is showing the document you upload here, and he needs to accept it before he can access the service he wants to use. So to give you an overview about further features, let's start with password protection, which is a feature of Azure Active Directory, and it's stuff we also know from the on-prem Active Directories. We can just configure blacklists, or we can configure defaults about logout threshold or minimum password length, stuff like this. Another interesting feature is the user risk analysis, which is also Azure Active Directory Premium P2 feature. So you get an overview about what's going on and which logins are happening to your Office 365 or to your Azure Active Directory, and gives you an overview about abnormal logins. So the next one is the Identity Secure Score, which is something which is really similar to the regular Secure Score we know in Office 365 and also for Azure, but definitely focusing to identity scenarios. The last slide in this context is showing you an example about the reporting capabilities we have in here, which is just bringing it all together for a special user or for a special scenario. As you can see here in this demo, you get an idea of which operating system is used, which IP address is used, who tries this login, and from where, even with a short map of the login location. But that's not all from a further feature perspective. We have also some further Azure features in the context of identity governance, which are definitely not part of the identity governance tab we have in Azure Portal, but they are focusing to the same scenario and business processes. Let's start with the conditional access topic. So for example, if someone tries to access your environment with a jailbroken device, we can configure a then, for example, deny the access. I know the discussions with customers or partners, is it about mobile application management or is it more about conditional access management, and what is the difference? Mobile application management is protecting data in an application. Conditional access is protecting the access. So this is what I say at the beginning of the session. It definitely makes sense to start with the scenarios and not with the features, because in the scenarios you get an idea of what is interesting or what is relevant for your customer. Is it the access, or is it what a user can do after he gets the access? If it is about what he can do after he gets the access, then you are in the application management area, which is done with Intune MUM policies. Let's talk about this. It's about app protection. And app protection can be done with two different scenarios. It's about the mobile device management, which is managing the device, and with this you can also manage the apps on the device, but this won't work for external partners or for your customers. You cannot manage the device of a partner because normally the device is managed by his company. In this scenario we can use mobile application management, which only manages the application. So for example, the Teams app or the SharePoint app, but not the device. Call to action, from my experience, first step definitely is to get an overview of the scenarios. You can start with assessments Microsoft is just offering, as you can see here in my slide, or even take the secure score as an idea of what's going on in the tenant and to find out which scenarios are relevant to focus on. Or you can work it out in a design sprint workshop, whatever works for you and your customer. Then the second step is a security blueprint. Aggregating all the scenarios, create a list of things you want to set up the stuff in the Azure portal, do the testing with some end users, evaluate it, maybe you have to rework some scenarios, and then do the rollout. With this, thank you very much. If you have any questions, just post it in the chat.
Thank you for being a part of the Galactic Collaboration Summit. Join the community and meet in-person world-class Microsoft and MVP speakers this autumn in Wiesbaden and Frankfurt. Germany, with 15 full-day tutorials and over 150 Microsoft 365 and Azure sessions at the combined European Collaboration Summit and European Cloud Summit from 26 to 28 October 2020. Community rocks.